Good evening, students. Welcome back to microprocessor and microcontroller online class. In continuation to the last class, I am going to discuss about the features of 8051 and the block diagram of 8051. In the last class, we have discussed about the 8051 microprocessor introduction and what are the comparison between the 8086 microprocessor and 8051 microcontroller. In the last class we have discussed. In today's class, I'm going to focus on the features of 8051 and then after that I am going to discuss about the block diagram of 8051. So 8051, as we told yesterday, 8051 is a microcontroller which has been producing by the Intel Corporation. Along with the Intel Corporation, some other companies also producing the various versions of microcontrollers like Atmel, Mega, Microchip, Motorola. All these companies are very popularly producing the microcontrollers. So now in the syllabus we have the one particular microcontroller that is called 8051. As the name suggests that microcontroller is a integrated circuit which will be in very small size and it is going to control the devices which are connected to the microcontroller. So the name is microcontroller, being in a small size, and it is going to control the various devices which are connected to that device is called as 8051 microcontroller. The features in the last class I have explained some of the features. In addition to those features, I am going to talk about some more features. In the last class we have discussed it has been available in the 40-pin integrated circuit. It is a programmable integrated circuit. As the programmable means, according to the user program, that particular device is going to perform the function, so that it is a programmable integrated circuit. We can get that programmable integrated circuit of IC 8051 microcontroller in the 40-pin package. So the technology which is used to package that particular integrated circuit is called DIP. DIP stands for dual inline packaging technique. So now, and the second important feature about the 8051 is 16-bit address, and it is having the 16-bit address and the 8-bit data bus. So 16-bit address is nothing but we know that microprocessor is going to handle with the 8086 microprocessor is having the address bus of 20-bit, whereas here this microcontroller 8051 is having the address bus of 16-bit only. That means what? It is going to identify the memory locations with the 16-bit of address, so that from that it can access the data, or it can have the data that may be read and write operations with the 8-bit. So data bus is about 8 bits and the address bus is about 16 bit. In case of 8086 microprocessor, address bus is about the 20 bit, whereas data bus is about 16 bit. So that 8051 microprocessor handles the data with the 8 bit of data it can handle every time. So coming to the next one, it is going to give operate it on the clock frequency of 12 megahertz, whereas the 8086 microprocessor handles the data with the 5 megahertz only. So that compared to the 8086 microprocessor, this 8051 microcontroller makes the operations more fastly compared to that one. Coming to the next one, whatever the architecture that 8051 is having, that architecture is named as it is Harvard architecture. Internally it is having the architecture is called Harvard architecture, and it is 8-bit architecture only, because the 8051 is designed to operate on the 8-bit of data, so that this processor or the ALU is named as 8-bit of Harvard architecture. Here in case of 8086 microprocessor and the 8051 microcontroller, whenever we are talking about the 16-bit data or 8-bit of data, means what? The processor or controller able to handle the data of that much bits only, that is 16-bit, and the 8086 is about the 16-bit, whereas 8051 is that is 8-bit. So that ALU, arithmetical logic unit, is designed to operate on 8-bit of data in case of 8051 microcontroller. We know that microcontroller is nothing but it is a microcomputer. Then all the peripherals which are needed for the computer will be available in the integrated circuit only, on the integrated circuit only. So that the 8051 microcontroller is also named as a microcomputer or a computer on a chip. So that microcontroller will have the CPU and the memory, input output devices, and the timers, and some specially designed operated devices also can be integrated onto a single chip, so that it is named as it is a microcontroller. It is a microcomputer. So as I said, the microcontroller is going to have the memory, inbuilt memory, that is also named as on-chip memory. It is having the on-chip memory of 4 kilobyte of RAM, that is read-only memory, whereas 128 bytes of data, that is about random access memory. So here the code is only read-only memory. We can read the data from that 4 kilobytes of memory, whereas 128 bytes of memory is a data memory which we can read the data or we can write the data into that memory. So but this is about on-chip memory. These are named as internal memory, but the maximum it can have the 64 kilobytes of, including the external memory which is compatible for the 8051. Maximum it can be 64 kilobyte of code memory that can have. That code memory is nothing but read-only memory, and 256 bytes of data memory that can be compatible along with the 128 of internal memory. This complete thing is named as memory spacing or memory division of the 8051. On-chip memory is about 4 kilobytes for the code and the 128 bytes of data, and but this can be compatible for the external memory also, that is about 64 kilobyte, in which we have the 4 kilobytes of internal memory, and it is 256 bytes of data memory, in which the 128. That means what? If we consider 64, out of the 64, 4 kilobytes of internal memory, so that can be accessed with the 60 more kilobyte externally. And coming to here, 128 internally is there, so that 128 bytes of external memory that can be accessed for the data accessing, that is a random access memory, which can able to provide the read and the write operations also. As we told yesterday that 8051 is having the 32 IO ports. That means what? These IO ports can be used for input and output ports, and that can be accessed based on the program and based on the number of pin, and these pins can be accessed as either address or the data bus. We know that the data bus is about the bidirectional bus, whereas the address bus is the unidirectional bus. So that here this is going to have the input output ports. 32 input output ports are divided into four ports, that is port 0, 4 port groups, that is port 0, port 1, port 2 and port 3, and each port is having the 8 pins. So that 8 pins it can have. This is port 0 means P0 to P7, and port 1 means P8 to P15, and the port 2 means P16 to, likewise you can have the up to 32 pins, that is P31 pins out of the 40 pins, and 32 pins are programmed for the input output ports. Coming to the next one, it is having the two 16-bit counters, and we can call it as timers also, and the timer 0 and timer 1, this is going to have the two 16-bit timers, that is timer 0 and timer 1. and it is going to have the on-chip oscillator, inbuilt on-chip oscillator will have, and the on-chip oscillator will provide the required amount of clock signal, clock frequency to all the individual networks which are integrated on a chip. So that's by making use of this on-chip oscillator, the each and every device is going to work in synchronously. This is about on-chip oscillator. Coming to the block diagram of 8051, as I told earlier, 8051 is a microcontroller. It is also named as a microcomputer. Microcomputer is nothing but all the complete computer we have been getting on the integrated circuit, and this is about the block diagram of 8051. Block diagram of 8051 will be asked for 10 marks in the exam, so that this is very, very important. We know that if you go with the 8086 microprocessor, 8086 microprocessor is nothing but it is a CPU on integrated circuit. CPU on a chip is named as a processor, but we are having, along with the CPU, we are having some interrupt control. On chip ROM is nothing but a code memory. On chip RAM is nothing but the data memory, and we know that that is having the two timers, timer 0, timer 1, and it is having the oscillator which is providing the required amount of clock frequency. And coming to the bus controller, that means what, this is having the 3 buses, address bus, data bus, and the control bus, and all these will be controlled by this one, and it will be having the 4 ports, IO ports, and each port is having the 8 pins, so that it is going to have the, it is going to program for the either input, either address or data P0 to P3, and thus along with all these components, and serial input output port is also integrated onto a single chip that is named as the 8051 microcontroller. Serial port is going to allow the serial communication by using the transformation, by using the transceiver, that is a combination of transmitter and receiver. So as the definition I explained in the last class, microcontroller is nothing but it is a microcomputer or a computer on a chip. So that for the computer, what we require the CPU, and we require the input output devices, we require the memory, and we require some timers, and we require some special purpose peripherals. All these must be connected properly to provide the computer operation. So but all these are we have been getting on a single chip, so that it is named as it is a microcomputer or a computer on a chip, and we can call the microcontroller is also computer on a chip, or it is a microcomputer. So that here we are having the 8051 microprocessor will have the 2 interrupts, interrupt 1 and interrupt 2. That means what, by making use of interrupt 1 and interrupt 2, and the 8051 get be interrupted, and so that based on the higher priority of the interrupt signal, this is going to serve that the 8051 is going to serve that particular interrupt signal by stopping the current execution. After serving the interrupt, it is going to resume back, and again it is going to complete the execution, so that it is having the 2 interrupt 1 and interrupt 2, and it is going to have the interrupt controller. That means what, interrupt controller will take the decision that which interrupt has to be served first. It will be taken by the decision will be taken by the interrupt control, and so that after taking the interrupt, that particular interrupt, that will be given to the CPU. CPU is nothing but central processing unit, and it is also named as processor, and the processor is based on that particular signal, it is going to accomplish that particular one, and based on the given clock frequency. Generally 8051 is designed to operate with the clock frequency of 12 megahertz, so that here the crystal oscillator with the 2 capacitors, it is going to generate the required amount of clock frequency, so that based on the clock frequency, the CPU is going to execute the functions, or the CPU is going to serve the interrupt signal which was decided by the interrupt controller. And this is nothing but it is a system bus. System bus includes the data bus, address bus and the control bus, and this is a bus controller here. This bus controller will have all the control over the buses, that is the system bus, data bus and the control bus. And so that we know that on a microcontroller chip, on the chip we will be having the on-chip memory, and this is the on-chip RAM. RAM is nothing but read-only memory and it is a code memory, so that the size of this, maximum size of this read-only memory, that code memory is about 4 kilobytes of memory, and it is a 4 kilobytes of RAM it can have, and it is a read-only memory and it is a code memory, but it can be accessed for almost 64 kilobytes including the external and the internal. This is the on-chip memory, is about 4 kilobyte only, but it can be expanded to the 64 kilobyte up by connecting the external devices, so that external RAM is about the 60 kilobytes, whereas internal will be the 64 kilobytes, so that it is about the RAM, read-only memory. It is a code memory. Coming to the RAM, and that is the random access memory, which can capable of read and write operations, so that it is a data memory, and it is internal, that is on-chip RAM or the data memory is about 128 bytes only, but it can be expanded to the 256 by connecting the external memory also. So that internally 8051 microcontroller is having the two memories, that is ROM and RAM. ROM is for storing the program, whereas RAM is used to store the data. The RAM is with the 4 kilobytes, whereas the ROM is with the 128 bytes only. And coming to here, this arrow marks indicate that this is the bus directions, and this is a bidirectional, this is a bidirectional, and this is unidirectional because it is a read only, it is unidirectionally. From this only we can read the instructions, we can fetch the instructions, but we can't rewrite the instructions into this memory, so that it is a unidirectional one only. Likewise, you can differentiate the read only memory and the random access memory. As I said just now, the 8051 will be having the two timers, each is 16-bit wide, and it is a 16-bit wide, and so that timer 0 and timer 1, and this is having the two timers. And the bus control is going to have the control over all the buses, that is system bus, data bus and the control bus. And here out of this if it is a complete integrated circuit, and we have been getting that integrated circuit with the 40 pins. Out of that 40 pins, 32 pins, out of that 40 pins, 32 pins will be programmed as input output ports, and that will be divided into 4 groups, and this is port 0, port 1, port 2, port 3. In port 1 we can have the 8 pins, port 2 we can have the 8 more pins, and so that port 3 also we can have the 8 more pins, so that will be 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, that will be 32 pins can be programmed for address and data lines. And these are the bidirectional ones, these are the bidirectional lines, so that may be acts as address or the data bus. Whenever it is acting as a address bus, and it will be treated as unidirectional bus. Whenever they are carrying the data, that can be a bidirectional one. That means that will be read the data from the memory, external memory, that can be write the data into the memory, so that whenever these are carrying the data information, data signals, so that we can treat these ports as the bidirectional one. And coming to the next one, it is a serial port, and this 8051, the main function of the 8051, it is going to support for the parallel communication, and that parallel communication will be supported by the port is named as serial port. And here this is having the two things, one is the source and another one is the destination. Source is named as the transmitter, that means what, the signal can be transmitted in parallel manner from the transmitter, and whenever it is taking the data or the information from the outside, and it will be the receiver. So that this is a complete block diagram of 8051. Here 8086 microprocessor is simply processor on a chip or a CPU on a chip, whereas a microcontroller is nothing but the total computer including CPU, oscillator and interrupt controller, memory, timers and the bus control. All these things we have been getting on a chip, so that we can call microcontroller is nothing but microcomputer, and it is also named as a system on a chip or computer on a chip. And by making use of the microcontroller, we can have the very wide applications, and in the home applications we can widely use the microcontroller. In the automation also we can widely use the microcontroller, and in communications we have been using the microcontrollers, so that in the home appliances, microwave oven is the best example. Microwave oven is the best example for the microcontroller applications. And coming to the automation, and whenever if you go to the fuel filling station, automatically that stops the filling the tank with the pipe, and that is also the best example for the automation. In communication system, in radios and televisions, in the computers, we have been using these micro controllers, and in many applications in the field of military applications also, this microcontroller has been using very widely. And in nowadays microcontroller has been available in the various versions, but we are going to discuss about the 8051 microcontroller only, and this is very very important. And this block diagram can be asked for the 5 to 10 mark. This is nothing but it is a system bus, you can call it is a system bus. Here we know that the system bus is a combination of data bus, address bus and the control bus. And with this, the first topic of the 8051 microcontroller in the 4th unit is completed. In the tomorrow's class, I am going to talk about the pin diagram of 8051, and most part of the pin diagram of 8051 microcontroller is completed because we have discussed that IO ports, we have discussed the timers, and we have discussed the on-chip oscillators. Likewise, the most part of the thing was already completed. In the tomorrow's class, I am going to discuss about the pin diagram and the architecture of 8051, and tomorrow class is very very important, and from that we can expect the one lang answer question. In tomorrow's class, I am going to cover the pin diagram and internal architecture of 8051, so that do subscribe my channel to get the direct accessing of the videos and to have the live streaming. If you reach the subscribers to the 1000, we can have the live streaming also. Thank you student, thank you so much, and go through all the previous videos and try to write the notes from that. If you find any doubts in that, you can call me or you can text me anytime, so that I will be clearing those your doubts. Thank you student, thank you so much.